Okay, what needs to happen for addiction to be free, for you to be free of addiction? This is an important question. Um, uh, you'll see the video talking about time here in a little bit and how long it takes. I just want to get you clear in this video really briefly about the three things, three-ish things, three phases, right? Stages of the process that need to happen in order for you to be totally free. Okay, the first thing that has to happen is that you got to stop looking at pornography or whatever the addiction is, behavioral addiction or the depression or the suicidal thoughts or anything, as the problem. You got to start looking at it as a symptom of a deeper problem. Okay, that's the first thing that's got to happen. Okay, so once you do that, then the first step is we stop doing that and we find out what the real problem is. If you haven't done that, any of the other work that you're doing you're just throwing water at smoke. Okay, you're solving issues that are coming from this issue, so they might disappear, but it might generate another one and another one and another one. First stage is you have to find what the root issue is, and you, my friend, have to know that you've found it. Because if I diagnose it, I don't know what you're like, but for me, if someone comes up to me and they're just like, Bob, here's your problem. It's almost instinctive. My reaction is to throw up a wall of defense and start looking for problems in them. You know, I can get past that, but it takes a lot of awareness in order for me to stop with that. And on top of it, if they tell me what's going on, I still don't feel like there's any sense of power or ability to get over it. On the other hand, think of it this way. If I just looked up behind you and I said, my friend, dude, there's an elephant behind you. It's coming at you. It's got some tusks. Most often, most of you are going to look at me and be like, that is ridiculous. Elephants live in the zoo, at least in the United States. We're not in Africa right now. And it's too cold, it's wintertime, or whatever it is. Bob, you're an idiot, right? I could tell you all day long that that's the case, and it's not going to change anything about you, except that you'll have to deal with my quote-unquote idiocy. But the moment that you turn around and you see, oh my gosh, there is an elephant here, and its tusk is coming right at me, your behavior starts to change on its own. You'll dodge out of the way. You'll start to go like, oh, that's why the smell. And you'll start to make connections on your own. All kinds of other things will start to happen in your life because you saw the issue, not because some professional saw it. You saw it. That's step one. You have to see that it's the root issue, and someone has to be able to coach you into a spot where you can see it. Okay? Otherwise, I can tell you all day long, and it's just a nice theory, something someone told you. Second thing, now that we found it, we actually have to let it go so that it's no longer an issue, right? Oh, here's the elephant in the room. Okay, now I got to figure out which doorway I need to figure out in order to get this elephant out. And we got to leave the trail of peanuts, assuming elephants like peanuts and follow trails of peanuts. So we got to leave the trail of peanuts and go out the door. And then on top of it, once we've left the trail of peanuts, we got to leave the door open. And then once it goes, we're good and we can call animal control and we can get all this stuff taken care of. You have to let it out. No sense in just oh no, there's a tiger loose in my house and then just running around the house like mad. You have to open the door and let it out. Okay? Same thing. If it's in your house, you're behaving weird anyway. Always. Even if you don't know the tiger is in there, right? Even if you don't know it's a tiger or an elephant or whatever it is, the stench, the sounds, there's this weird anxiety and stuff, you're having these nightmares, whatever it is, there's something going on in your life that is causing you to behave differently as long as it's in the house. We got to open the door and we got to let it out, okay? So we've found it. You find it. Now you have to go through the experience of opening the door. I can open my own doors. That's great. But I'm not a miracle worker here, which means that you've got to be able to open your own door. The cool part about that is when you learn how to do that, you'll be able to do that for any other issues that show up in your life. So the nice thing about being coached through the process is that you learn how to go through that process forever for the rest of your life. Or if you're a parent, to be able to start to coach your kids through it, assuming they want your help. Okay? So that's the second stage. The third thing is there's a series of foundational skills and awareness that you have to develop in the process. And this is actually what takes the most amount of time. But there's a series of skills and awareness that you have to develop in the process that will finally enable you to make that freedom stick so that the door doesn't get stuck open and the elephant doesn't come back in because it smells more peanuts, okay? You have to figure out how to close the door and make it so that the elephant doesn't come back, okay? Too often people go and they'll confess or they'll get rid of things or they'll do something that helps them own up to what's going on. They'll have seen that there's an issue in their life and they'll feel really, 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 really good about it. But they haven't done what it takes to not pick it up again. So they feel really good for a while. And they're like, man, I was doing great for 6 months or 3 months or a year, and then out of the blue it came back. Out of the blue just means I didn't actually handle the root issue. I don't know why it's happening. If it's out of the blue and all of a sudden, that means you don't know what this is. And that's why it keeps hitting you in a blind spot. The second thing is you haven't done anything in your life to make it so that that doesn't have any effect on you anymore. So 3 pieces need to happen in order for you to be free of addiction. 1, you, my friend, have to see the root issue. Not me, you. And you've got to be helped to get to that spot because it takes a little bit of finesse. 2, you have to open the door to let it out. And 3, you got to close the door so that it doesn't come back. And that's with a series of skills. And that's really does what take the most time. Otherwise, we could be done with this in a much shorter amount of time. Like you wouldn't believe, as I've seen with a lot of my clients. Okay? So as you're considering what does it take to finally be free of addiction, really these 3 things are the key things. Okay? A lot of the other stuff that you'll hear out there, no, if they're not addressing these 3 issues, then they're not really worth your time. Okay? They might be fun, they might be interesting, but you don't need to learn brain science. You don't need to learn any of that at all. You don't have to go through years of meditating on a mountaintop or that kind of stuff. You don't have to quit your life and go to a rehab center. It's not necessarily just about having a spiritual practice. That's great, but not everybody is religious in that sense. And so like if you're not religious, that would just mean that you're not able to get free of it. That's not right. It's not necessarily about deepening a spiritual practice. To solve a problem, you solve the problem. Okay? Often, a spiritual practice can help. But I want you to see that solving the problem means seeing the problem, letting it go, and making sure it doesn't come back. That's it. Those 3 things are what we'll talk a little bit about on the phone, but we've got to see how that applies to you and your unique situation when we talk. Hopefully that helps you kind of wrap your head around what's next so that when you start talking about how long this is going to take, which is the next video, it'll start to make sense. Whether or not you're going to be doing it on your own as a DIY process, or if you're really in the mood to like just have a guide help you through that. Someone who knows the ropes, someone who knows how to do this and can get you free of it. Because the cost of doing it is both time and money. Even guides, some of them are great, others aren't. You want to look at their track record. But even guides, time and money are going to be the cost depending on whether you want to do it by yourself or other people, but you at least need to handle those 3 steps.